There is a myth at the heart of the whole Israeli-Arab or Israel-Palestine conflict, as it's termed. A myth that is causing this conflict to be prolonged and that the West continues to indulge in and refuses to confront. It's that the Palestinian cause is about statehood. No, it's about destroying the Jewish state. That's all it's ever been about. Have a watch of Ben Shapiro's words where he explains this.
Folks, there is a myth that pervades Western societies, and it's an unbelievably dangerous and stupid myth. That myth is that all cultures are like ours and all people underneath are really just like us. They think the same way. They want the same things. And all it requires is a little bit of kindness and education for everyone to blossom into a good Westerner. That is a lie. And it is a really dangerous lie, because when you grant that credibility to people who actively want a different thing, who actively foment evil, who teach their children evil, when you say, well, they don't really want evil, they're not really evil, they don't believe evil things, really it's just about us not being nice enough, what you end up doing is surrendering to the evil. And that is the story of the Palestinian nationalist cause for the last 80 years. The Palestinian nationalist cause is based on an evil supposition, which is the destruction of the state of Israel. That is what it is about. It's about the extirpation of the Jews and the destruction of the state of Israel. How do we know this? Well, because the call for a Palestinian state ended originally with the creation of one in Jordan. The original territory of Israel was supposed to include both Jordan and Israel, and then under the British mandate, it was sliced off, Jordan, and was made into a Palestinian state for the Arabs. And then, under a variety of negotiations and white papers from the British, the supposition was that the West Bank and the Gaza Strip would eventually become an Arab state in the partition plan of 1947. That was then rejected by the Arabs. The Arabs said there can be no Jewish state here under any circumstances at all. Palestinian nationalism is rooted in rejectionism of Jewish presence anywhere in that area. And in fact, the extirpation of all Jews from that area, which is why every two-state solution that has ever been proposed by anyone has included the complete Judenrein nature of a Palestinian state. No Jews living within an Arab Palestine, despite the fact that 20% of Israel is actually Arab Muslim. In any case, this was also made clear by the fact that between 1948 and 1967, when Egypt was in control of the Gaza Strip and Jordan was in control of the so-called West Bank, Judea, and Samaria, there was no attempt at a Palestinian state. And in fact, in 1964, when the Palestine Liberation Organization was originally founded, calling for a Palestinian state, the West Bank and Gaza Strip were not in Jewish hands. So the call for a Palestinian state when the PLO was founded was for the destruction of the state of Israel. The Palestinian cause has always been about the destruction of the state of Israel. It is why the Palestinians will simultaneously insist that Gaza is their home, but also a refugee camp. It's a refugee camp from where? From Tel Aviv. It's why the Palestinians have always called for a quote-unquote right of return that would allow them to enter Israel and destroy it from within. This has always been the Palestinian nationalist cause. And the West has decided, because of its own stupid idea that everyone thinks like the West, that this is just a territorial dispute in which if the sides could just get over themselves and if you drew the lines in the right places, everybody would go home happy. What everybody wanted was two states side by side in peace and prosperity. That was a lie. It is a lie. It will always be a lie because the Palestinian nationalist cause is in its essence a rejection of the possibility of a Jewish state. It is a mutually exclusive proposal, and it always has been. Now, that is the only way to understand what happened yesterday. So yesterday in Israel, Hamas, which has an ongoing hostage deal, a so-called ceasefire with the Israelis. That deal is that Hamas is supposed to trickle out live hostages and dead bodies of people that it kidnapped on October 7th. And in return, Israel is supposed to turn over murderous terrorists. That is the deal. And Israel foolishly has agreed to these sorts of deals in the past and is agreeing to those deals now because Israel puts a high priority on getting not only its live citizens home, but also on getting dead bodies out for proper burial. It is a policy with which I disagree. I think it is a stupid policy. I think it's a bad policy because all it does is incentivize further hostage taking. But that is the policy of the state of Israel. That's why that ceasefire is in place. So yesterday, it became clear that the Hamas terror group, which runs the Gaza Strip, with the acquiescence and support of the civilian population. Okay, let's be very, very clear about this. The civilian population in the Gaza Strip is supportive of the destruction of Israel. Period. Full stop. The same thing is true in the West Bank. It's true in Judea and Samaria as well. This is true by every available polling statistic, literally ever in this area. There's no desire for a two-state solution. There's no desire to live side by side in peace and security. In fact, there's an inculcation into children of the idea that the Jews must be wiped out.
So, as always, Ben Shapiro just hits all the key pointers, but specifically with regard to the Palestinian cause. And I think it's time that we say this clearly and firmly. There's a tendency in the West to deny or downplay the evil of some ideologies and some groups. We did that with Hitler and the Nazis in the 30s. It can't be he really wants European domination and global domination. That's so evil. It must be he's just a bit upset with how he was treated with the Treaty of Versailles and how Germany didn't get everything they wanted and blah, blah, blah. And they're doing the same thing with the Palestinians. They're saying they can't really want to destroy all the Jews and throw them into the sea. And they're just upset about what happened in 1948 and that their land was taken from them. That's what the people in the West think. It's normalcy bias. It can't be so bad. It can't be that. Well, it is. And we have so much evidence to prove it. Even recently, forget history of, going back a few decades. Just recently, Israel tried a mini two-state solution, giving Gaza away. And look what happened. We got October 7th. That is your answer to the question of what the Palestinian cause is about. They voted in Hamas, and Hamas raised a generation that gave us October 7th. So we need to get clued up on the facts. We need to get clued up on the accusations that Israel faces so we know how to respond to them. We need to get clued up on what's really going on here. Because this is not about a people with a legitimate grievance. I'm talking about the Palestinian side. Everyone says Israel had an original sin in 1948. They stole the land, so the Palestinians are just resisting. So that's why our new documentary called What Really Happened in 1948 is a must-watch, where we show you that far from it being about Israel stealing land, it's about a fight for a people's just fight, the Jewish people's just fight for survival against an opposing genocidal enemy. Have a watch of the trailer, and if you want to watch it, you can click on the link in the video description. In 1948, the world witnessed the rebirth of the Jewish state, the State of Israel. A moment celebrated as a miracle of survival and self-determination after centuries of persecution and the horrors of the Holocaust. Yet for decades, this event has been twisted into a narrative of theft and catastrophe, with the so-called Nakba portrayed as Israel's original sin, where Jews allegedly stole Arab land and displaced innocents in a premeditated act of ethnic cleansing. But what if this story is fundamentally inverted? What if the cause and effect are the other way around? Not Israel aggressively seizing territory and Arabs responding in self-defense, but Arabs, driven by deep-seated hatred, rejecting the Jews' legal and historical rights to live in their ancestral homeland and waging a genocidal war long before Israel's re-establishment. In this JTV Plus documentary, we're going to uncover the unvarnished truth about 1948, the centuries of pogroms and anti-Semitic violence that set the stage, the Arab leaders' explicit calls for extermination, and the defensive war Israel fought to secure its existence. We'll challenge the pervasive lies head-on, showing how Arab rejection of peace wasn't about creating a Palestinian state, but about denying Jews the right to live at all. From the Nazi-allied leader of the Arabs in Palestine, the Mufti al-Husseini, to the forgotten occupations by Jordan and Egypt, when no Palestinian state was even considered, this is the story of a conflict rooted not in displacement, but in whether the Jews deserve to live in their homeland. Join us as we debunk the myths with facts, confront the historical record fairly but firmly, and reveal why 1948 was not an act of aggression, but a righteous response to annihilation. This is what really happened in 1948. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.